In this lesson, we're going to be changing the values of our sliders over time. Okay, so in our last lesson, we created the sliders and added some dummy keyframes just to see if it was working. And now we want to add some real keyframes. And those are going to kind of reinforce the motion that we get whenever our flowers get bumped up into the air. So by taking away the keys that we had before and the values we had in the original wiggle expression, now we're not even getting any of the sway we had before, but we can control that all with that slider. So it's definitely more versatile than what we had in the first place. So let's say right about here where this hit first happens is where we really want to transform the movement we see in the flowers. So right now I'm on frame 133, that's at 4 seconds and 13 frames. And now we're going to go into our flower mark at that same point. I'm going to add another marker here just so that we can know this is where the fall begins. And then actually let's go back out to the whole logo animation and come in here and say this is where the flowers really stop moving around so much, which is right there, because they still are getting a little bit of back and forth movement by this keyframe. So we'll go back in here and add another marker. So we know between markers 2 and 3, that's where this magic needs to happen. So if you remember, before we had our amplitude set to 7 degrees and our frequency set to 0.5. So by this time where we've got our 2, up until then, everything has been pretty normal. So we can go ahead and put those values back in. So for the amplitude, we're at 7 degrees. So I'll just put in a 7 and we'll hit our stopwatch to set a key for that. Hit the stopwatch, and for this one, we'll do a 0.5. So now they look the same as they did before. Nice little normal flowers swaying all around. Now I'm going to go forward just a little bit into our animation. Between the 2 and the 3, and we're going to kick that slider up. So let's see. But at first we were at a 0.5, and now let's have this happen a little bit more often, maybe not all the way up to a 1, but we could try that first just to see what happens. So now it's going to happen every second instead of every 2 seconds. So we're changing the frequency to a 1. And then let's say that the amplitude is going to go way up. So let's take it up to something like 29 or 30 from 7. So and then let's figure out how is this really the right amount of time in here. So really the only way to know that is to come back and look back at our whole logo animation. So we kind of come in here, and then you can see those really start to get crazy. So let's see how many frames that is. This is right where it's starting. Let's just see what it looks like after about 20 frames. So if I hold down shift and I hit page down twice, that's just a little bit past that area there. So if we go backwards 1, that's about 19. So if we come back in here, we're pretty close, right on the money. So we can just pull those forwards a little bit. So that was pretty close. So those get really crazy. Now I'm going to pull this back a little bit because I want to give them enough time to really start rotating, because you can see that they're still climbing. So maybe even pull this back a bit as well. So I'm trying to keep them where by the time they get close to this key, they are really starting to move. And then we need to really start to slow them down again. So you can see here, they have the potential to really move around quite a bit. So let's say by the time we're here at 3, they're back down to their old selves, and I can just copy that first keyframe, hit Control C, Control V, and the same for the frequency. So you can see kind of how that looks. Let's go out to our whole logo animation and just check it out. Let's see how it looks. So I'll just hit the 0 key. Pretty good. I think it's still moving a little bit much by this point here. It kind of feels like it really harshly kind of stops there. So we're right in this area here. Let's see what's going on the inside of that. So it's coming down really close to that point. Let's just pull those forward a little bit more and just give it a little bit more time to slow down. And also, let's select them all and easy ease them. Okay, we'll go back out to our whole logo animation and rain preview that again. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Right about here, though, I feel like something a little bit odd is happening. So let's go in there and see what it looks like. So this is right in between these two, and it feels like it's still moving really rapidly. So actually, maybe let's pull it back a little bit. Let's see if we can't slow that down a little bit sooner. So it's happening before the 3, but maybe that's okay. Let's go back out and check it out again. I think that is much better. It looks much more natural. And it's going to look even better once we add our motion blur. So let's actually go into our flower mark. And we want to turn on motion blur for everything. So we'll come in here, turn on our motion blur sliders, turn on motion blur. Let's see how it looks. So we get some motion blur right in here when that's really moving around, so that's great. When we come out here, we want to have motion blur on the flower mark and motion blur turned on for whenever it pops up. So now you can see a little bit more blur happens there. And let's also turn on motion blur for our letters. Okay, let's just watch this all the way through from the beginning. I'm just going to hit that 0 key. Very nice. Now, if you wanted to go in and change your values a little bit, if you feel like maybe something else needs to be happening there, you certainly could. I think this is looking pretty good so far. And in the next lesson, I just want to come back and do a few final touches to really finish it off. And we'll probably be out in that final comp a little bit, maybe touching this up a little bit, and then maybe we do something with this green solid. So let's just come back and add a few finishing touches to this logo to send it on its way.